So we thought we'd chat a little bit further about anxiety at work. It's such a big topic, and we had quite a few positive comments about it.
Yeah.
We did have one person say that it was particularly helpful because she was about to go into what felt like quite a big and scary feeling meeting. So we thought that would be quite a good topic to talk about. Something like giving a presentation or a speech. I know that a lot of people find that quite intimidating and uncomfortable. And I think, in fact, I saw something that said that it's actually a greater fear than the fear of death in the top 3 fears that people have. So that's interesting. So we thought it was a good one to talk about. So I would say the first thing to notice is if you're not giving the presentation or going into the meeting right now, what is it that's creating that sense of fear or anxiety in you? And really, it's all just thought in action, and it's created entirely in the mind because it's not actually happening now. So something that we talk about quite a lot, we point to, is the power of thought, and just recognizing or noticing that thought is so powerful, and it's kind of the creative tool we use. So anything that's ever been invented or designed, or even like the idea of building a house or taking shelter or creating a cup, or for my cup of tea, that all started as a thought in someone's mind. So that's how powerful it is as a tool. But we can in fact use it as a weapon, using our imagination against ourselves or against somebody else. So I think that's really useful for people to try and consider. It's not often talked about, but it's incredibly helpful. It's something to recognize, really. So when we think about any fear, it's really a sensation or feeling in the body that's happening. So for example, something like a fairground ride, my oldest son loves them, wants to go on the worst, highest looking one possible, whereas my younger son can't imagine anything worse. So it's the same thing, it's a fairground ride, and it's just a different experience that they're having based on their thoughts about it. So I think that's a really useful thing for people to consider too. So it's like the feeling of adrenaline or your heart pumping. We then go on to label it as good or bad, or fearful or exciting, or mortifying, or a real adrenaline rush. So it's sort of what we add on to whatever is happening or what we're thinking about or feeling, how we kind of flavour it with our own bias or our own opinion, really. So I think that's really useful for people to see. And the other thing is, it's really our resistance to it that is creating an issue, not that there is an issue, but creating the problem. So it's our thinking we don't want to do the meeting or the presentation, and it's that feeling of not wanting it that is really creating the problem within us and the resistance to it. So there really is no issue. We can just turn up to the moment, say we're doing the presentation now. If we just turn up to the moment, if we're shaking or we're sweating, giving a presentation, it doesn't really matter. That's not an issue. That's just what is happening physically within our bodies. So I think there's like a little bit of distance or letting go of the feeling that it's a problem, which is the most helpful thing. So it's kind of just doing it, feeling a bit uncomfortable, but doing it because it's just a feeling and it's not going to kill us. So that's sort of my little intro or summary of what I'd say about that. How about you, Lindsay?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think, I mean, I love the reminder, because what's happening in the here and now, we can almost certainly handle. And it's only ever when our mind is lost in imagination about the future or lost in memory about the past that most of our issues or problems or suffering comes from. And I think it's also really good to know a couple of other things about what is also going on in the mind when it does this. So this this is a really like a function of the mind or a habit of the mind that it can get into, is that there's two things that jump out at me. Is number one is that we have some belief that if we think about something ahead of time, it is going to help us in some way to prepare, to not make a mistake, to hope that you know, prepare that it goes well, or just really to, you know, to maybe look for, well, what questions might I receive, or, you know, what kind of response might I get. It's like the mind likes to scan into the future, imagine the talk or the presentation or the meeting or the interview, imagine how it's going to go, imagine how I'm going to solve all of the issues that come up. It's like a sort of, feels like it's sort of preparing.
Yes.
Now there might be in that some tiny shred of something that is useful. So for example, if you have an interview either for a promotion or a new job, you're of course going to spend a bit of time researching the company, maybe preparing your skills and strengths, you know, question. You know, if you're going to give a presentation or you're speaking in a meeting, you're of course going to know that you might rehearse your material. So there's some shred of usefulness in it, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about useful preparation. What we are talking about is that when the mind gets, as this person commented and asked the question, actually goes into anxiety about it, because there's so much overthinking about this kind of preparatory, how can I make sure that everything goes okay in the future when it's not actually happening now? Yeah. So I mean, it's completely futile. It's 100% futile. So it's really good to know, I think, that your mind is going to do this because it believes it's being helpful, but that it's 100% futile, above and beyond what is just practical for you to look at.
Yeah.
And then the other bit of the story that's usually going on with these kind of anxious experiences around these sort of like what I would call sort of like public things, you know, like being interviewed, giving the presentation, standing up in a meeting, is that there is usually some story running about what does it mean about me? What are people going to think? What about if I make a mistake? How will I be judged? How will I be? It's all of that compare, contrast. Will I be rejected? Will I be accepted? Will I be validated? It's all of that kind of self-esteem-y, you know, kind of stuff that kind of can come up in us. And it's just to know, again, that ahead of something where a mind might see, I've got the potential here for some, you know, I don't know how my speech is going to be perceived. I don't know if I'm going to get the job. When there's that uncertainty, which minds hate, it's absolutely going to jump in with some kind of trying to, you know, think ahead and make sure that I do it well. And, you know, which actually when you get into all that overthinking, you're actually less likely to perform well than if you're just, as you were saying, in the moment, as settled as you can be, even if you've got some of that feeling going on, and just knowing that you can handle it. So I think just that's what I would say to people. If you really struggle with this, just see if you can tune in a bit to the underground story that's being believed here, really, what the mind's trying to spin, how much meaning it gives us. It tries to give the event about what it means about us.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because it's what a mind is going to do. It's mechanical and it's trying to help us. So we can say, thank you very much, great. But like I think we mentioned last week, you know, that feeling is really just letting you know you're caught up mentally, and we have become very mentally heavy, and you know, lots of people are hyper vigilant and, you know, very analytical and trying to work things out. So that's fine. We know the brain will do that. Let it run its program, but it's running old software. And, you know, we're not in survival. We don't need to be in survival mode perhaps as much as our ancestors had to in the past, but very survival. So yes, I think understanding what a mind does, but also your point about it being about the person, the personal identity. We're trying to protect that identity. And in fact, that's a thought as well, you know, that's our conditioning and how we've been brought up. That's all our thoughts. And, you know, we might label ourselves as someone who's shy or doesn't like giving presentations, but is that really true? As you say, it's kind of slowing down and looking more deeply at what's underneath all those feelings and just looking at what is really here. And the other thing you mentioned was about uncertainty. Well, everything is uncertain always. We just think we know what's going to happen in the next minute. We absolutely have no idea. So it's almost insane to think that we know, but it's what a mind does, and it's how we kind of live these days. We've become so mentally heavy. So I think being able to be okay with uncertainty, settle into the moment. Yes, my heart's racing a bit because I'm about to do this, but knowing you're okay and you can cope in the moment. I mean, we're amazing in an emergency situation because we drop all the overthinking about anything else. We're not analysing, we're just doing. I think that's a really good example. You know, if something is really needing your attention, we drop out of everything else and we deal with it. So that's useful for people to know and recognise too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the uncertainty piece is, it's only ever a mind that is going to struggle with that. Us, like the bit of us, our awareness, our essence, whatever word we want to use for it, you know, there's a billion different not a billion, but there's a million different words for it and ways of talking about it, but that's not bothered with uncertainty because, as you say, it knows that every single element of life, part of life, is uncertain. And because that can feel really scary as well, I think, to really kind of go, oh, I really don't know what's going to happen. And that's part of the reason that the mind likes to fill in the blanks and pretend that it knows and that it's got this crystal ball capability that it just doesn't have. But that's because, as you said, in the moment, we are absolutely built to deal with everything. We have this connection to something much more intelligent and vast and, you know, kind of than the little computer in our head. It means we can absolutely deal with, you know, difficult questions if they come up, or, you know, things that we're not able to respond to in the moment. We can handle that. But it's that coupling, I think, of the uncertainty with a belief that we can't handle it that can have us really spinning our mind in anxiety, and that then affecting our performance. Yeah,
definitely. And worrying about our performance. We don't know how we're going to perform, whatever that even means, you know. But if we just turn up to the moment as clear and present as we possibly can, knowing this is why we talk about it as an understanding. If we start to see this, we can just turn up with more awareness and clarity of the moment. And that's all we need, you know. It's so simple, really, which is brilliant. So we can recognise the mind, we can recognise what's going on, but it's so simple. Just settle into the moment as much calmer and as you say, you know, you're much more likely to be able to respond in a better way if you are more clear and your mind isn't thinking of 12 questions ahead that you're imagining, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've all been there. We've all done that. It's how we operate, but it's just seeing this, understanding this that can really help people. So I really hope people can hear something in that and find that valuable. So,
yeah, and I think because it's our relationship to that happening. It's not that it has to go away.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's because I think so many, and innocently, you know, we all, I don't want to feel anxious before the interview. I don't want to feel anxious about it. But actually, as we've just discussed, the mind's going to kick up about it. It's going to happen. But it is our capacity to be with that, and for that to be there, to know why the mind is running the story, but to know that there's a different part of us that can just have a different relationship to this thinking, you know, this sense that's going on, like, but that we tend to get so caught up in. You know, we don't get caught up in our hearing, we don't as much. We don't get caught up in our sight as much. We don't get caught up in our smell as much, but we get massively caught up in thought because we believe it's trying to tell us something that's true and real. But what if it isn't? Then it can just be, you know, we talk about it, don't we, as like background noise or white noise or the radio being on. It doesn't have to go away in order for you to be able to function. It can simply be playing in the background, but it's our relationship to it that is one of, or certainly in my experience, one of the most helpful things is how I'm with it if it's there.
It's just not taking it seriously, is it? Isn't it? It's
completely.
Like just, yes, it's like an annoying little someone chipping away, narrating what's going on, but you can ignore them, you know, they're not really adding much value. And I think there's something else about, you know, trusting our instinct and intuition in the moment. If we're in our head, we might miss some of that wisdom or a new idea or something, you know, a magic creative idea that's come out of the blue. We might miss that because we're overthinking so much. So it's actually hugely beneficial as well, because you're going to potentially be more creative, and, you know, as I say, it's like that intuition will have more space to come through. So yeah, so I think, and I'm sure you do, this kind of understanding is just a win-win. It helps in all areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think something else that might just be helpful to mention with this particular topic around anxiety at work, because really what we're really talking about, as I said, is like, it's like the public facing bit of it, isn't it? You know, either being interviewed by 3 or 4 people or, you know, the bigger audience. Is that this is also another place where the mind would love to have us believe that it knows what other people are thinking, and just to get super clear that is not, it's not possible for that to happen.
It's our thinking. We're thinking what we think they're thinking.
Exactly, and that's really what we're feeling.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we're sitting in a meeting presenting to the board, and we may see someone yawn, or we may look like someone looks distracted, or someone might look really interested, and our mind will continually be trying to interpret, oh no, they think I'm bored, oh no, they're looking interested, and we kind of create this whole fabrication around what's happening. It's uncertain, so the mind goes, quick, let's tell a story about it, and we can never know what someone else is thinking. Ever, unless we actually directly ask them and they directly, honestly answer us. Otherwise, it's all conjecture and imagination and a mind trying to fill in the blanks.
And they're probably invariably thinking about themselves, number one. But also what they're thinking will change over time anyway, depending on their state of mind. But like we said at the beginning, you know, it's our survival mind or system. And so thank you for trying to keep us safe. You know, we can see it, understand it, be grateful for it, because in a real and present emergency we can be grateful for that. We need a bit more adrenaline if we've got to run from a burning building or something, but that just doesn't happen very often in life, and yet we feel this level of anxiety and fear more than we perhaps need to. So that's why people understanding this or seeing this, it can lighten the load and make life a little less serious, which is brilliant. The same situation, same circumstance, but it just feels a bit more light, manageable. We can take it in our stride. So
100%. Yeah, that's certainly been our experience, hasn't it? And definitely. That of the people that we work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know. Amazing.
Brilliant. Well, I hope that was helpful to everybody. We will try and do it again next week. I'll be at a conference, so it may or may not happen, but we'll do one the week after, certainly. So any questions, please do let us know, and we can try and answer that on the next one.
Brilliant.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for watching. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.